On.
All right. Welcome to the Mortgage Coach Tuesday interview. Every Tuesday, 9 o'clock for over a decade. I have been interviewing someone amazing. Today, that amazing human being is Rene Rodriguez. Welcome to the Mortgage Coach community, brother.
Thanks for having me, my friend.
Yeah, I always learn a lot when I do stuff like this with you. And I always just feel like the content you bring into the community is among the best. So thanks for making time, and it's a good time for leadership.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's an important time for leadership.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. I think this is one of those times where we need it, and I think people are being defined whether they want to be or not.
Yeah, and that is going to be the big topic. So, guys, that will be the topic is, what is your leadership brand, and what do you want it to be? And what is it really? Like honestly, what do you think it is? So that will be the topic. We're going to spend 55 minutes on that. Before we do that, I have a couple announcements to make for the Mortgage Coach community. One of them is we released last night. So anybody that logged into the Mortgage Coach advice engine, we have something that we've been working on for a long time. It's called gamification. So when you logged in, it would have told you, are you a black belt? Are you a brown belt? If you didn't get it, just refresh and you should get it. And then if you click on settings, so I just clicked on settings, and look at this, guys. We've got badges. You know how many TCAs you've created and what kinds of TCAs you've created. You know the views, rep versus own, seller buy down, the types of reports. And then as you go through your trophy case, you can look at all the different accomplishments you've had within the Mortgage Coach platform. For all you new Mortgage Coach members, you now have badges for onboarding. Did you put in a headshot? Do you have your logo? Have you created your first presentation? So we're trying to make it easier for you to learn Mortgage Coach, and then we're trying to make it more fun and more competitive to be a black belt in mortgage advice. This is a test account, so it has me down as a brown belt. I am a Mortgage Coach Grandmaster. I have done over 1,000 DCAs, but the login I have is right here. So I would just ask every Mortgage Coach member that's on this call, that's listening to this interview, make sure you log into your advice engine, click on settings, and see where you're at as a Mortgage Coach. And if you do like this, if this is a cool feature, share it on social media and let us know that you like it. Take a screenshot. We'll be posting for the next week or two, talking about this. We'll be sharing success stories, like why Mortgage Coach members like it, why managers like it. So we'll be talking about this for weeks to come. But this is one announcement. Rene, anything you want to add to that?
I am just so impressed with this. I'm looking at this, and we've just to anything that makes adoption of a technology that helps a customer better is always good. Gamification is something that is part of all of the viral products that we all use. We just aren't even aware of it typically, but something that helps us strive towards a goal. I think it's great. Bravo, my friend.
Yeah, thanks. And I did want to point out, like if you look at TCAs created, you'll see a little call out box, and you can see that in this particular profile, I've created 139. I have 170 to the next badge. So as you scroll through your trophy case, it'll show you what you've done and where you're at. So make sure you guys check that out. I want to click on this one real quick. Oh, there's one that has a fist pump in it. It looks like I don't have that one, so it's kind of cool. All right, another big announcement is I am a massive fan of Rene Rodriguez's content. And Rene was cool enough to agree to take some of the content he's building and creating as part of his Lighthouse series and make it available in our channel. Our goal with the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel is to be the most valuable resource for mortgage professionals that want to go to the next level. And so anytime we can take what we think is some of the best content out there in the market, we've had Bill Hillstad in here for years. I mean, Bill Hart's content in here. We've got a Jeremy Forcier playlist. We got a Josh Meadow playlist, and now we have a Rene Rodriguez playlist.
So Rene, now you're making me look at a short list. I got to add more videos there. See, that's you're gamifying,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not cool.
Yeah. So Rene, hey, thanks for making that available in the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel. Any thoughts on that? Anything you want to share?
No, I've got a lot more coming for you. I mean, I think we've got about four or five more that are out, and then man, this has been fun. I just to kind of been forced, and you've challenged me to just start delivering things and pushing things out. So this has been fun, and I'm catching the fever of wanting to keep putting out video. So this is I'm seeing a good silver lining here.
Good, good. We are creating more value than ever. I know among some of the most well-known influencers and leaders in the mortgage industry, everybody I know loves your content and has just really called out how much you've raised the bar. So thank you for what you're bringing and all the value.
Thank you.
So this call was inspired from a post that you posted. I don't know if you posted on Sunday.
Yeah.
And it was titled, "What is your leadership brand?" For anyone that's listening to this, you could go into just about any social media channel and pull it up, but it is an article on LinkedIn, and I will show it here in just a minute. But why don't you start with, like, why did you write that article? Like, what was the calling to put that out?
You know, ever since I was a kid, I've always watched behavior, and I think it's probably because I didn't have a dad, and so I don't mean that as a sob story. It's like you look for behavior in other people that you want to adopt, and as you get older, going to school for behavioral neuroscience, you kind of get even more focused on behavior. And one of the things that I've come to realize, and I learned this a long time ago, is that crisis defines so much of our society. And crisis, there's something really fascinating. You know, you look at, not anybody probably on this call, but, you know, people that were alive when Kennedy was shot, they can tell you exactly where they were. When the Space Shuttle Challenger blew up, I knew exactly where I was in 6th grade and seeing the monitor. 9/11, when that happened, you know, there's all these things in times of crisis that there's something that hits our values and principles so deeply. And our values and principles are tied directly into the limbic system, which ties directly into the hippocampus, which stores memory. And so there's something that when crisis happens, we begin to remember and absorb everything that's happening. And we remember the leaders that stepped up and the ones that didn't during times of crisis. And so I watched when this came down, the first thing I did was grab a pad of paper and a pen and said, I'm just going to watch. And I didn't do that when I was younger because I was in the middle of it. But now being a little bit older, you go through a few of these things, you just start to watch. And I started seeing things, people rise to the surface and saying, wow, this is amazing, and feeling inspired. And I watched a lot of people not rise and where we needed them to. And so I decided to have a little fun with it and add some names to the process.
Love it. So I'm going to pull up the article real quick, guys. If you're watching this live, there'll be a link in whatever channel you're watching at, whether it's Facebook Live or our Zoom environment. If you're watching the recording, link down below in YouTube. But, you know, my leadership brand, 10 leadership brands you don't want. You know, this is a quote. I think I've heard it before. Maybe it was from you. Maybe it was from someone else. But it is so true. Adversity does not build character. It reveals character. And we all have it, you know, and here's one takeaway I had from this. You know, we all have something amazing and good in our character. And guys, we all have flaws, you know, insecurities, weaknesses that do reveal themselves. And so the thing I loved about this is when I was reading it, you know, I was like, oh, I don't want to be this guy, but sometimes I am this guy, you know, and, you know, I felt like, and then there's people that, you know, I can put names to, oh, I know what this is. But you know what? Lots of times it was me, or it was a post I made, or a way that I showed up. And sometimes it wasn't just how I showed up outwardly. I was able to mask it, but it was how I was showing up internally, and I was masking what was coming out externally. So I don't know. I want everybody to read this article. Jeremy Forcier did a great job of sharing it with everybody that is on his personal team. I saw an email, and I know you saw it too, that went out to his internal team. But what do you want to highlight on this article? I mean, people are going to read it. And what do you want people to take from it?
Yeah, well, I think that, you know, I try to write it in somewhat of a humorous fashion. I think we can all very easily identify people that fit every one of those. But the goal of it, as I stated in there, was let's not point the finger at anybody in this when you read it, because that's the easy part. We can point at, there's a jester, he's the comedian. There's Sally Alarmist or Amy Alarmist, and, you know, always talking about conspiracy theories. And, you know, instead say, where do I fall in those? And because I think that for me, one of my purposes is to try to create self-awareness. And so if you notice, even my style is I ask questions a lot. I don't jump around on stage. I try to just get people to start thinking. And when you can create thought, internal thought, it lasts a lot longer than our conversation. And that to me is one of the things that when we started, what was my brand, one of the things that we came out with was I wanted my value to not leave the building when I did. And that was one of the things we came up with, is how do we create long lasting value? And that comes through introspection and reflection. It doesn't create for great, exciting video where someone's jumping all around, but it creates for a great experience if you're in there. And more importantly, something that's longer lasting. And so I challenge people to look at this and say, where do they fall? Where might they be there? But at the end of the day, this is all about trying to help people understand that they impact more people than they realize. It's a great quote that says, no raindrop ever felt responsible for the flood. Most of us don't feel like we impact much. And so that a joke here and there, and just a post about this and that, we forget that we're influencing our brand. And if your brand, from a leadership perspective, doesn't matter, then this is an irrelevant conversation, right? But you got to ask yourself what it is that you want and how it is that you're being, and look at the delta in between. If you want to be the comic, and that's what you do, and you post memes all day long, then great, you're on brand. But if you're trying to be seen as a leader to help people through something, and you're constantly joking, then, as I wrote in there, it's just when you then, after 87 memes in a row, and then you come out with some sort of, attempt at thought leadership, it just doesn't fit. And I think I wrote in there, it's like almost finding your cereal box in the fridge. It just doesn't, it doesn't fit the brand of what I was waiting for. And so look at the balance between what you're putting out there and what you're trying to achieve. Most people haven't even asked the question of, who is it that I want to be? How do I want to show up? And then we forget. I mean, I had a sobering, it had to be close to 10 years ago now, when somebody said, oh, I'd never date you just based on your profile picture on social media. And I was like, what? And I went through my social media and I was like, oh man, if I saw those things out of context, I guess it was like sobering, because I really liked her. And it was like, okay, I have to be aware of what I'm putting out to the world. And, we talk about transparency, which is a critical thing, but you have to balance transparency with context. There's so much taken out of context on social media. We already know that it's a highlight reel. We know that it's the best angles and the right lighting and all that kind of stuff. But yet we also have to realize that humans are humans, and they're going to make decisions based on little information. So if it comes to branding, comes to leadership, we have to be self-aware.
So that reminded me, and when I read it, I thought of an interview I did 2 weeks ago with Steve Scanlon. And the name of the interview was called Strategies for Mental and Emotional Strength. And it was literally the first week of, this isolation that we're doing, this, call it lockdown, call it whatever you want. And one of the key quotes that I wrote, and I always take notes when I interview people, and after the interview, I write things, but I got a lot from this interview. But one of the things he talked about was naming how you feel, like being able to name it. And then he said a phrase, and maybe it wasn't his phrase, you've heard it before, but if you can name it, you can tame it.
Nice.
And
Love that.
and I was just like, oh, that stuck in my head. And I literally, from the 2 weeks since I did that interview, and I put a link down below to it, I have said that in my head to myself multiple times. If I can name it, I can tame it. And sometimes it was, I'm communicating with someone else and I'm like, God dang it, I wish they could name, like they're being a jerk and they don't even know they're being a jerk, or they're bringing this crazy energy, like they can't name it. And then sometimes I walk from that conversation, I had a, heated exchange, and I'm like, oh, them, they should have done this, they should have done that. And I'm like, wait a minute. I was part of this becoming less than a, constructive tension conversation. And it all came down to is like, I couldn't name it in the moment. Like if you can name it, you can tame it. So when you read this article from Rene, start naming it. Like the post that you're making, who are you being when you do that post? The posts that you're attracted to, what name would you put those on them? Yeah. And the names that you're not. So if you can't name it, you can't tame it. And guys, and if you can't tame it, you can't create the brand that you want in the world that we live.
That's so good.
So yeah,
That's I
so
just gotta tell you, dude. That's such a. I've heard you say that, but I love your how you expanded that into beyond just an emotion, but into a behavior, into what we call maybe a disempowering behavior. And this is what's so interesting about that. To be able to even do that requires the willingness to be self-aware. That is such a that is the first step in all of this, to even say, you know what, I want to be self-aware. And what we you brought up Jeremy's post or Jeremy's email. It had nothing to do with pointing to anybody else. It was 100% about him and where he's struggling with it. That's leadership. It's not saying you need to do this and you guys need to. It's saying, man, it made me think about how I was behaving and how it's modeling the behavior that you want your audience to be. And people see that as vulnerable. So what? Vulnerability is the only way to connect. And without connection, you can't lead. And so if you can't connect, you can't influence. All those things are all closely tied. So it takes courage to be that self-aware. So I love how you explain that.
well, thank you. And that's another thing. There's been content that I've shared, and the way, it connected with me, and the way I shared it, it got a lot of engagement, and I felt like, oh, got a lot of value. And then there has been content where I've shared it, it was awesome, and it was like, wah, wah, no, couple likes, not a lot of engagement. And I call out some of the things that Jeremy's done lately, just the way he is framing things. Now, I know both Jeremy and I have both been through your Amplify. So I mean, I learned so much going through your Amplify class around how to frame things. But that's something that's happening a lot in today's market, where we're reading some content, we're framing it, the content itself is the message, and sometimes it's shared really well,
Yeah.
and leadership grows, and sometimes it's shared poorly,
Mm-hmm.
where we're one of these 10 leadership personalities that we don't want to be. And sometimes it's not that we're a bad leadership personality, it's just ineffective.
Yeah.
And it never goes anywhere. Do you have any thoughts on that, or any advice for the community? Because I know everybody wants to be a leader in this community. That's why they're part of the mortgage coach community. But any advice for us on that?
Yeah. I think that, and I'm still trying to figure this out myself. I mean, so I want to claim the fact that I'm in this journey. I think both of us are trying to collaborate and figure out what is the formula for this. And here's what I've come to find out, and I'm going to go with the formula for what I feel is most valuable. I got a call from a friend of mine in a different industry a month ago, apologizing because he had quoted a bunch of stuff that I did and didn't acknowledge where it came from. And I started laughing, and it was his wife who had called him out. And he followed up with this post of just raving about what Rene has done and things like that. And I called him and I said, "What are you doing?" I go, your message was lost in this praise of this person that nobody knows who this person is. And he said, "Well, I want to make sure I quote it." I said, and it dawned on me that I think people forget the purpose of quoting and the purpose of sharing. And I said to him, I said, "Nobody cares that it came from me. What they care about, because they don't follow me, they follow you. What they care about is, what are your insights? If my quote inspired something, what did it inspire? What are your insights? Give your take on it." Like what you just did right there when you said, if you can name it, you can tame it. And if you were to just to leave it at that, and that phrase, I would have taken that and I'm like, oh, name your emotion, tame your emotion, that makes sense. And I would have written it off. But you go, man, I was in this conversation, I wanted to name it. Man, I'm being a jerk right now, so I can tame my jerkness. I was like, oh, I never thought about it like that, because it was your insight that created the value. And so I was like, wow, okay. So we had this conversation. I said, brother, I go, I want to hear what you think about it. They want to hear what you think about it. You can say, yeah, I got this from a buddy of mine, and that's the extent of it. Should you quote your sources? Always do that. That's just good etiquette. But don't make it the highlight. If Steve Harney posts something, give him credit, but then what's your take on what Steve is talking about? Because Steve wants to know that as well. If Jeremy or Josh or somebody in your community posts something, post it back out there. And if you just do a blind share and there's nothing in the comment and it's just what the person said, no one's going to read it. We already know that. It's a waste of effort. But if you say, I just read this and I was thinking about this and how I have been behaving, or how this was happening, or the upcoming election, or whatever it is, and it made me think of this, take a look at this specifically for this. And all of a sudden I see context, which would be the frame, and then I read the message. And that's like, all of a sudden now I'm ready to hear it. So I think that there is way to add more value. But I also want to challenge the listeners right now to say, don't just share something, share your insights. You wanted to share it for a reason. Tell us why, because that might be even more valuable than the share of what you think.
I totally agree. I do want to, throughout this call, and we have another 40 minutes, and I know Rene has a couple exercises he wants us to go through, but I just want to call out a few examples of just great leadership, great framing. You know, I follow Steve Harney. He's someone that I've just always admired. And
He's the best.
every time, you know, he used to be out speaking a lot, doing a lot of keynotes. And every event I ever went to, if he wasn't my favorite speaker, he was one of my top 2 favorite speakers at that event. Because I just got so much wisdom from him, so much like just, I can take that down and use it. I can take this down and use it. And it was just like, wow, insight after another. And he just epitomizes what we learned from Donald Miller about, you know, be the guide, not the hero. And he does such a great job of that. Anyways, he posted this morning, and I knew that I was doing this interview with Rene, where he called out, you know, Google sent out this message to all their customers. And then, you know, I put the message here in the Mortgage Coach Facebook group. Even in a challenging time, it's possible for brands to engage with customers in ways that are relevant and helpful, and that don't come across as tone deaf or self-serving, helping to build people's confidence, alleviate concerns about their financial security amidst uncertainty of one of the most important things the financial service brands could do right now. And right now, as mortgage professionals, helping people with fiscal stimulus by doing refis, it's never been more important. And it's not only been important for like that, you know, like that Band-Aid of saving a couple $100s a month, but guys, we know that if they took that savings and prepaid their mortgage, they could turn this, lock in historically low rates, and pay off their house 10 years earlier or 7 years earlier, or whatever the number is for them. And literally, they could take this crisis into retiring 5 and 10 years earlier because they refied. And then, you know, to get through the storm. And then when they got through the storm, they prepaid their mortgage because you taught them. Real estate and housing, it's the most important thing. It's the biggest industry that's going to help take us out of this recession. So buying and selling homes and financing homes, we live in an industry that's never been more important. And so I just thought, like, Steve Harney, great leadership. You've got why I liked it and what I liked about it. What's your thought and color on what Steve does?
He sent me a text last night at 1 a.m. and about the article. And then I responded. I said, you know, you need to get some sleep, man. And his response blew me away. And it said, I wanted to quote unquote turn the tide, and talk about a leadership brand. I wanted to quote unquote turn the tide and stabilize quote unquote the industry. I made a 30-day commitment on 3/16 to do whatever I needed to do to accomplish that, or die trying. I'm in day 28 of 2 to 3 hours of sleep a day. We're now past the worst of it. There is a light at the end of the tunnel that many can see. I'll give it everything I have for the next 48 hours, complete my commitment, and then I know I deserve to rest. I mean, there's a little bit more he said, but I mean, that is leadership. And that is a clear brand of what it is. He knows what he wants to stabilize the economy and turn the tide. I mean, and he's doing sharing every gift, every piece of knowledge he has, and just sharing it relentlessly. I mean, people ask me why I follow him, why I adore this man. It's because that is what, if you ask me the kind of people I want to be, it's like people like that. So
yeah, well, he is definitely a beacon of light and a beacon of clarity for anybody in the mortgage coach community. You know, one, you should be part of his premium product, Keeping Current Matters, but just follow them on Facebook. You know, anything that they do, their blog is the best. Everything they do is just bringing clarity, bringing confidence through data. It's all data-driven stuff. So it's not like his opinion. Everything he shares, while it may be slanted to his color, but he's using data to do it. And it's all about keeping the mortgage and real estate business rolling, not for the mortgage and real estate business, but for America. Let's make America great through real estate. So follow him. Great example of leadership. So Rene, we're about halfway through the call. I want to engage the community. I want to get them, you know, thinking about their leadership brands. I want to provide them with some tactics, you know, like Steve gave us that tactic on emotional intelligence. If you can't name it, or if you can name it, you can tame it. Like over the next 35 minutes, let's get the community engaged and let's give them some things that they can take away beyond your article to get them to build a leadership brand that helps the clients they serve.
Well, you, my friend, have been probably the most challenging friend to have over the last year because you continually push me. You push me to get on video. You push me to do these lives. You push me to create something beyond an idea. And I love you and hate you for it at sometimes, but it has made me so much better. And you did it again this time. So I did some research on, because it's one thing to say, let's create a brand, but then let's say, well, okay, what are the steps and what does it look like? And so I came up with, just looking at a bunch of articles and some stuff on Harvard and other things that I've done, and looking at, say, can we do this in 4 steps? And so I thought it'd be kind of fun. I sent you the document before. I don't know if you read it, but if we went through it together and see if we can at least begin the conversation for folks. And I just want to warn everybody, we haven't done this. Dave, you and I haven't done this together. So, which I think is why I think it might be kind of cool to say that we don't have to overthink this process. And even if you get this process halfway right, you're already starting to shift the filter of how you post and how you show up every single day. And so I don't know if you want to show your screen, Dave, or if you want me to do it on my screen, whatever you think is easiest.
Yeah, I'll pull it up on my screen real quick, guys. So I will put this document.
I want to clean it up before you put it up, though. But you have a draft version, so
okay,
10 minutes
guys.
Afterwards.
So we'll get it cleaned up before we put it up, and that is not it. Let's see, where'd it go? There we go. So here is the doc.
So the first step is really taking a look at, from a customer perspective, what results do you want to achieve this year? And you always look at, say, from a customer, investor, employee, organization. And if you were to come up with a phrase, Dave, or just even whether it's, add as much value, it's not so much of a result, but what do you want to deliver to your audience this year? Or as a result during this time? Let's just say during this time.
Well, I mean, for me, it's the same thing I've been advocating and evangelizing for over a decade. And if anything, it's more like the time that we're in makes it even more important. But it's leadership. I believe that the best salespeople, the most effective people, are just great leaders. I always believe in leveraging technology to be a more effective educator. And so if I had like a triangle of value that I'm trying to create around my personal brand and the content I create, it would be leadership, technology, advice. Like giving, like my advice makes a difference. And I want that to be real, not
you want
fluff.
to do that to help clients and your customers do what? And your audience do what? So here's what, as he thinks about that, I want you guys to think about what I'm asking is, what is he trying to deliver, but then for what purpose, right? Because if I'm delivering advice and technology, for what?
Yeah, so, for the customers that is a mortgage professional, I really want them to have, their optimized personal success. And to me, the levers that I've always helped with that is, it's one, like someone meets you and you're able to win trust quickly and earn them as a customer. We call that conversion at the point of sale. And then to have a sustainable mortgage practice, that doesn't matter what rates are doing, economics are happening. You've got a mortgage practice that just is like a snowball rolling down a hill. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger because you delivered advice at the point of sale, hashtag total cost analysis, and then you delivered ongoing value year after year through an annual review. And so sustainable mortgage business, the fastest path to trust. And that's what I have been advocating for. That has been my mission forever, to shape the industry. So by the way, that's one customer, the loan officer, and then the other customer is the borrower. I do believe the way that we help loan officers turn their advice into a competitive advantage is best for America. Like the homeowner is better because of it, So those are my 2 customers, and those are,
So let's do this. Let's show my page, because I'm going to show you what it is that I'm doing here, and I think it'll be good. So what I have here. Let's see.
I'll tell you when I see it.
Can you see this
Boom. I see it.
the document here? Okay,
Yep.
perfect. So what I wrote here, what you want to deliver to your customers is leadership technology advice to optimize personal success, is what I heard you say. So now, don't think any further on it, right? I want you to choose 6 descriptors. And as you're doing this, and just say them out, I'll just highlight them. Just think about 6 descriptors of how you want to be known for. What do you wish to be known for, right? How is it that you want to be known? Just choose any 6 and don't overthink it.
Okay, visionary, confident, collaborative, humble, fearless. Is that 6 yet?
I think so.
2, 3. Positive.
Perfect. All right. So now we've got 6. Now this is where it gets interesting. Well, we got to combine these 6 into 3 phrases. I'll give you an example. If fearlessly what? Choose one to go with that.
Fearlessly visionary. You know, I like to be an innovator. I like to create new stuff, and I will do that at much risk. You know, I will jump
fearlessly
into
innovative.
A boom like that.
Okay, because he said innovator, which is somewhere in here. I forget. I know
I would have picked that if I would have seen it. I didn't see it.
It's right there. So we're going to put it right there.
Okay.
So now we're going to put, let's take confidently what?
Collaborative.
See what I love about that.
I don't know if that's a word, but
no, it is. Think about it. Think about somebody who's not confidently collaborative. They come from a scarce mindset. But confidently collaborative said there's more than enough for everyone. And so we're going to go into this collaboration, sharing like for example, me giving content over to Mortgage Coach community versus putting it on my site. Confidently collaborative. So that makes sense to me.
Okay. And then humble. And then humbly positive. I don't know.
Well, let's go with a different one. So
open-minded. Well, open-minded. I mean, I absolutely don't believe everything I think. And I absolutely learn from others every single day. I mean, everything I am came from me learning something from someone else. So I put humble is my most important value. And I like open-mindedness because I just pride myself in being open and always learning.
Humbly open-minded, right? Let's go with that. Now you got to have some creative freedom when you do something like this, right? And so now the simple part is we put it together. So I want to be known for being fearlessly innovative, confidently collaborative, and humbly open-minded so that I can deliver leadership, technology, and advice to optimize personal success of my customers. See how that sounds?
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty badass.
And so when you put all those together, all of a sudden now, this is just for you. This isn't something you put out to the marketplace. It's not something that becomes a post. It's not something, because it's the moment it becomes a post, it just loses its effect. This is something that you should have in front of your computer screen before you post something. Is this collaborative? Is this confident collaborative? Is this innovative? Am I being timid in my innovation, or am I being fearless? I was scared to death to post this article because I know there's a lot of people that are going to go, oh, he doesn't like my memes. Or what is he trying to call me out for being political? He must be this, he must be that. And I had all these little voices, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. And I just posted it. And I remember I sent it out to you and to a couple other people, and nobody responded. I'm like, because it was on a Sunday, and I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to post it. And that was part of me trying to live into something that I'm trying to be more of. And so I think when we go through this, I mean, it's pretty simple, but it helps you get clear about who you want to be and how you want to act. Because this is only valuable. It's not valuable as a post. This is valuable as a filter to post through. Does it fit the filter of my brand? And if it doesn't, get it out. I've really never seen you post a meme or a joke.
That's not, I mean, again, that's never been me. I mean, I was the mortgage coach guy that always wanted to build my brand around advice. Like when I was a mortgage professional, you might want to unless you're going to mention the screen, pull down the screen. But are you going to share anything else on the slides or
No,
the visuals?
I just wanted to go through that. I think it's pretty simple, and I'll clean this up and have people go and just give it away.
So guys, there'll be a link down below to that. And if you're in the Mortgage Coach Facebook group, in our files section, this will be a PDF or some type of a document in our file section and in a post. But, you know, no, I got really clear as a mortgage professional. My advice makes a difference. And I wanted to make sure everything I posted did that. You know, that's rate watch, you know, like I know what's happening in the market. And then I would always just tell success stories around, hey, family came to me thinking they wanted this. After doing my analysis, they did this, and look at the results they have over the course of their lifetime. So, you know, that's just me though. I do think like there are some people that I think are pretty effective with humor. And so I would, you know, how do you feel about that? Because I do think like some of the personalities that I like, they're pretty funny.
The world would be boring without humor.
Okay, so how do we balance? Talk to us about the, you know, the dichotomy of, you know, when to integrate humor and
that's why I think people get caught up is that there's no judgment in this. It's about what brand do you want. If you want to be the humorist, be that, because the world needs the humor. Anybody who knows me knows that privately, most of my texts are probably humorous. And I'm joking and I'm a practical joker, but it's not part of the business brand. And so I have to keep that separate. For me, that's just my choice. It isn't, because if it was everybody was trying to do what I was trying to do, this would be a very stale world. But you know, for comic relief, I watch my comedians on Netflix, and I watch Dave Chappelle, who actually inspires me on a lot of different pieces. And it's brilliant. And it's such a relief. It's just not my brand. And if you're trying to be the leader and the thought leader, but all you post are memes and Tiger King stuff, it's just a disconnect. But if you want to be seen as, I know people that post Tiger Kings and memes and all that stuff, they have 10 million followers, much more successful in an online world than I am, because that's their brand. I'm just telling people, choose your lane, double down in that lane, and get focused. Don't confuse it.
So I want to do one thing. I want to find out from people who are some of the people that are building brands that they admire, they respect, and I want to fill that up down below. So if you're listening to the recording of this, and if you're someone that's intentional about your brand and you want to like shine a light on it, in a way that you want to shine it, go for it. If there's someone you follow, like I know when it comes to loan officers, you know, I follow Denise Donahue. I think her brand, the way she creates humor, advice, just a balance of everything about her is just money. You know, Kelly Zitlow, Josh Metal, some other people, you know, I've been learning a lot from Richard Milligan. He specializes in helping, you know, mortgage leaders, you know, build personal brands on LinkedIn. There'll be an interview down below that I did with him on leadership branding. He actually called Leadership Branding and Creating Value with Richard Milligan. Check it out down below. Bill Hillstad. So right now, Bill Hillstad just kicked off his 6-week boot camp to become a master at Facebook marketing. And while he does talk about creating the content, he's really teaching you how to amplify, how to promote it. So there is a post on that. If anybody still wants to sign up for his 6-week
workshop. I handed all my Facebook stuff over to Bill.
Like, oh, did you really?
All of it. Yep. If there's one lesson that I've learned over this quarantine, is I've gotten so much respect for the digital marketers. It is such a hard thing to do. Oh man, it is hard. And the best thing I ever did was surrender to the people that know better than I do. And so, yeah, I've surrendered all my Facebook stuff to Bill.
Yeah. So guys, I'll put a link down below if you want to check out his workshop. But those are some people to follow. Rene, who are some other people that you follow? We mentioned Steve Harney already.
Yeah.
Who else should people follow?
You know who I think does a really cool job is Neil Dingra. I don't know if you guys follow him on Instagram, but his posts are so well done that you have to keep swiping to see the message. And it's just so thought out. And he's really clear about who he wants to be. Even his brother, Arjun, they really put a focus on building their brands. I thought was really, really, really well done.
Love that. Dan Arawich, guys, you know, our one and only, who's been posting in the Mortgage Coach Facebook group for over a decade with, you know, keeping us updated on the market. And now he's doing some other personal things. So
look at Phil Treadwell, who
Treadwell.
A year and a half ago, we didn't know who he was. now he's got one of the best podcasts out there. I think he's just done an incredible job with that.
You know, Bill Hart. So guys, who else? Who has a brand that you follow? And then let's also try to do this. Let's name it. Now, don't name it negatively. I don't want anybody, you know, calling people out in a negative way in the mortgage coach community. I try to keep this, you know, two things that I keep out of the mortgage coach Facebook group, and that's anything that smells like recruiting in any way, shape, or form. Delete, spam, do it twice. We block you. And just negative, like mortgage coaches is a place of positivity. It's a place of encouragement and inspiration. But if you want to put some people out and name them in a positive way, I would love some examples of who we're all following and who are building leadership brands that we respect. I would also ask, while Rene said filling out that document and keeping it to yourself, I agree. Although in the mortgage coach community, guys, we're a place to give accountability to each other and to grow together. So share your comment.
I would totally agree with, because that's collaboration on that, and you're not trying to build your brand. You're looking at other people to give insights and thoughts. And obviously, I'm more than happy to jump on and give my 2 cents on stuff too.
Yeah, so there'll be, you know, share in comments down below. We'll share mine that Rene and I just did in like less than 5 minutes, and I did not know it was coming. I'll probably want to fine tune that a little bit myself, but share what you're doing. So Rene, we got another 20 minutes. I'm going to check in a minute if people have questions, put them in comments down below, and I'll make sure we ask them. But what are some other things you want to make sure we cover over the next 20 minutes before we wrap it up?
You know, I think that I'm trying to make sure I say this right, because I've spent my whole life studying this concept of change, and we are in the middle of a lot of change. And will it be different after this? I think it's going to be very different, but I don't think different is bad. And so I think, and I would urge all of you listening to dive in and understand change as much as you can. You know, it sounds such a cliche statement, but understand how you respond to it. Because if you understand how you respond to it, then all of a sudden you can help others in how they're responding to it. Understand that emotions play a huge role in what's going on now. If you find yourself dismissing the role of emotion, try that with your kids and see what happens, and see the impact that has on them. Have somebody dismiss how you feel about something when you're upset and angry. I find it ironic that some of these strong leaders dismiss emotion while they're angry about something, which is an emotion. They've just chosen a safe one that their college football coach gave them that was okay to share. But human emotion is critical. And as leaders, you need to be emotionally intelligent. And to be emotionally intelligent, you got to do 3 things. You have to first be self-aware, understand where you are emotionally. If you don't understand where you are emotionally, you are going to step on toes nonstop. Second is to have the awareness and the empathy to understand where somebody else is. Because if you can understand yourself and you can understand somebody else. And third is to have the skill set to adjust where you're at to meet that individual for the best result. Those 3 steps can take a lifetime to master. Learning the content of what's happening in the industry and to be able to deliver it without emotional intelligence is dangerous and can be hurtful and can hurt your brand, hurt your customer, and hurt everybody. And so understand how to put those 3 together in combination with your expertise to deliver the best message. I think those are some of the most powerful things that we can do right now. I
love that. So we're going to think of how we create some micro content on that, because that was just beautifully said, important to consider. I know one more thing I would love to talk about a little bit before we wrap up this call. And then remember, guys, I'm going to look down for any questions that people have, or if anybody has, you just have a takeaway that you've had from today, put it down below. But one of the most powerful things I learned from you at Amplify, and while I'm going to get Rene to talk about it a little bit over the next few minutes, there's just no substitute to being in person with Amplify, at Amplify with Rene, and then having 10 people that have all invested 2 days of their time to give you feedback on this. But your framework around frame, message, tie down, I think it's just been a magic trick that I learned. And I know you can't teach it in 15 minutes, but I do want to create some awareness around it, because I think if people can understand, frame, message, tie down, they'll do a better job of being leaders. They'll do a better job of building leadership brands. So could you walk us through that and just kind of give us a 101 on that?
Yeah. So this is, I think I'll do it in a conversation I had with my son a couple of weeks ago.
By the way, I can find a handbook. Do you want me to pull up a page from the handbook that has that, or we don't
Not yet.
need that?
Not yet. I don't think so. Maybe let's wait. You have it ready?
I'll have it. I'll get it ready.
Yeah. Good idea. So the understand. So the basic, what is a frame? So a frame is a filter by which we understand the world. It's a frame of reference. And I use the example, if you were to say used car salesman, there's words that come up typically people say, which are sleazy, slimy, not trustworthy, pushy. Those are frames of reference. And those frames of reference become a filter to receive any information from that party. And so when we look at framing what's going on, the news and the media are constantly trying to frame what's going on. You have CNN framing it in one political aspect. You got Fox framing things in another. And the content is just the same. It's this. There's a sense of hopefully some truth in there. And then you have people racing to put a frame around it so that it affects how we are. And you look at statistics right now in terms of, how many people have died versus how many have survived. And people try to frame things in context to, this is, no more worse than the flu. And then they talk about death rates and mortality. And then we look at speed of onset, and we look at all sorts of things. Those are all attempts to frame something. And my son and I, because he's obviously can't be at college, so he's got to be home with us, which has been great for me. And we went on a walk. And he's an extrovert. He likes to be around people, and so he was having a hard time. And I said, let me give you a lesson, and that I think that we should all revisit. And it was something that Jim Rohn put together. And I've been debating on doing a video on this to kind of re-put this out there. But Jim talks about that life and business, it's like the seasons. You have 4 seasons, and they go around in a circle in a predictable nature. And he makes a joke saying about how long has it been that way? He said, well, probably about forever. And I said, so if you think about it, right now is kind of a winter of our time, of our life. And this is a frame to understand that we're in a winter. I'm looking at right now, it's snow here in Minnesota. It literally is white out snow outside. And what do people do? Well, things get harder. People tend to hibernate, things get slower, and it's more difficult. So you can say that this Corona time is like the winter of our life. But he provides this beautiful frame. He said, but there's a job for us to do in each season. And the job for us right now is to do 3 things: to get stronger, better, and wiser. And so what is stronger, better, and wiser? What books are you reading? How many of these mortgage coach videos are you watching? Are you watching TED Talks? Or do you spend your time watching The Tiger King? Is that getting you stronger, better, and wiser? I don't know. And so what is it that you're doing to get stronger, better, and wiser? And he says, great quote. He says, what a great time to grow while others are sleeping. I mean, talk about a competitive advantage to take market share. When everybody stopped marketing, what if you doubled down and tripled down on your efforts? What if everybody went and hid and talked about how horrible this is, but you went and created opportunity for those things? And so I asked my son, I said, so what comes after winter? And he said, spring? I said, yeah. But how long has it been that way? He said, forever? I said, yeah. And I said, so here's the thing: is the older you get, you realize that when the bad stuff happens, there's something else that's going to be following it. And when our brains can wrap ourselves around this frame or an understanding that this will end, this too shall pass, right? There's going to be there. It helps us embrace the moment. And if my job in this moment is to get better, stronger, wiser, learn, grow, so I have great seeds to plant in the spring, because the job of spring is to plant seeds at the time of opportunity and to take advantage. And he has this great quote. He said, just because the spring shows up doesn't mean you're going to look good in the fall. What a powerful thing. Because guess what? He said the spring shows up for everyone. It shows up for everyone, but not everybody plants the seeds. Not everybody took the seeds that they grew by getting stronger, better, and wiser, and the ideas and the concepts and the best practices that they got from the books that they read, to plant those seeds of opportunity in the springtime to then show up something better in the fall. And it was just, you started watching sort of this confusion turn into this smile of saying, oh, that's interesting. In just the frame of reference of what's going on, to be able to give somebody a better thought, a way to frame what's going on right now. And so the challenge I have for anybody listening to this is, what are you framing for your teams? What are you framing for your families right now? What are you framing for your realtor partners, your customers, everybody? Because it's the stories that you tell, the posts that you put out there, the memes that you share. that might be hilarious, but are they creating a frame that might go against what you're trying to do? I told people when the interest rates hit so low, I said, be careful glorifying rates, because I literally just spent months with you saying, how do we overcome rate objection? Well, they came down and everybody started posting about lowest interest rates. And guess what that does? It teaches everybody that must be the most valuable thing. So let's remember interest rate, interest rate, interest rate. We keep telling them lowest interest rate, lowest interest rate. And then when they go up, they go, oh, value must have gone away. Well, we trained them for that because we created the frame. But if you have the discipline, and I did a little research, I looked at the top 20 producers that I know, all making more than $1 million a year, not a single one posted about interest rate. Not a single one. They talked about their family. They talked about planning, a great time to invest in the future. Interest rate is a component of that, but we have to manage the frame. So I challenge everybody, what's the frame? For me and my son, it's to say, okay, we're in the winter of our time. What are we doing? Are we working out? Are we eating good? Are we reading good books? Are we getting better at something? So then when the opportune time comes in the spring, we have some good seed to plant. And then of course we get into the summertime. We have a job in the summer. He goes, go on vacation. I said, no, that's the time we got to protect what we did in the spring, right? Because you got the weeds and the ants and the hot sun and all the things coming after what we've done. And if we don't protect it, it's going to go away. And guess what? They will come for it. That's one of the things you can assure. If you're not there to protect it, they will take your garden. If you don't protect your relationships, you don't protect that stuff, that's going to come and take it. And then if we do all that stuff right, come fall. And he said, the number one task for fall was to take responsibility. So beautiful. And if you take responsibility for your failures, if you got nothing, you own that you got nothing because you didn't plant in the spring. I didn't protect in the summer. I didn't get better. So I planted garbage because I didn't get better in the winter. You own it. But he says, and if you own it and something good happens, you also don't have to apologize either for your success. And I just thought, what a beautiful way to frame life. Because this is, if we're the winter time, then awesome. I got to get better, stronger, wiser, because spring is coming real soon. And those people that talk about this is the end of the world, get out of here. I don't have the energy for that. Because if it's the end of the world, which it's not, I still need to get better and stronger and wiser. Because if the end of the world, then I'm going to be better, stronger, and wiser, ready for the end of the world. I still have to do that. Spring is coming. What are you doing now to get ready for the spring? And when spring comes, how hard are you willing to work? Because when fall comes, who are we going to be? That's my.
I love that. I love that. I love that. And, you know, you called out that a lot of top professionals were not, you know, talking about rates, but they were telling stories of families that called them, and then they were showing and talking about the story of how they created transformational value.
Yeah.
And
wealth.
you know, I lowered their monthly payment. I restructured their debt. I showed them a strategy to prepay their mortgage so they could become debt-free faster. So none of
which was dependent on rate. Because you can
lower.
Rate
did help it. But
of course it helps.
Yeah.
But when we all know when there's 12% interest rates, some people have 13. I mean, there's always a difference. There's always, and it just, the concept has to be universal. And all I'm saying is just be careful when saying that. And if you're prepping for people for the thing that you don't want them to come at you with.
Love that. So here's what I want to do. We got a little more than 5 minutes. One, I want to give Rene a gift. And I want to get a little bit of this gift too. I just thought of it. It would be really cool. We're doing this drill where there's 3 words that we have to come up with the 3 words. So First of all, Mortgage Coach community, if you follow Rene Rodriguez, if you got any value from this call, whether you're watching it live or the video, what are 3 words that come to mind to describe Rene to you? Because at the end of the day, our brand isn't what we want it to be. Our brand is what other people see it to be. And so I want to give Rene that gift, guys. So if you got value, really cool. Down below, what are 3 words that come to mind that make you think of with Rene? And please take a minute, and whether you're watching the video, whether you do this 5 minutes later, let Rene know.
And if there's no value, don't even write anything. I'm just kidding. No, even the no value stuff, I want to hear it all.
Yeah. And even if there's a word that, you know, he may not want to hear, like I wouldn't date you. We could take it. We could take it.
Absolutely.
And by the way, I would like to ask for that same gift for me. So if you do follow the Mortgage Coach community, and I'm going to do this drill, I'm going to schedule a 1-hour jam session, and go through Renee's document thoughtfully. And I would love your feedback. Like, what are 3 words that you think of when you think of Dave Savage? I would really, really appreciate that. If you could put Dave Savage equals so we know what's
Yeah,
Rene, what's Dave.
that's
So
awesome.
thank you for
Thank
that. Yeah, no problem, brother. So here's a question that came in from Ola. So Ola, thank you. Dan Keller, coach, what's up? Uh, Ola said, could you please recommend a book about the skill set? Oh man, it just went away. Hang on. Where did her question go? I was just reading it. Hang on. Give me a second.
This is
Okay.
on the Facebook group. Where do you find these questions?
Okay, here you go. Could you please recommend a book about, in quotation marks, the skill set to adjust to meet people where they are? That you mentioned, and he's talking about, you mentioned the 3 steps of responding with emotional intelligence. So what's a book? And it really, my takeaway from the way she asked the question is, what is a book you'd recommend to grow emotional intelligence? And Ola, if I got that wrong, reword your question below. Rene?
In terms of how to grow emotional intelligence, because you can learn about it through the book EQ. Daniel Goleman was the guy that first brought it out in 1995. In fact, I'm having his Time Magazine article framed because somebody sent it to us in 1995. That's how long I've been dealing with this stuff. But the book EQ is amazing. Peter Salovey was the first one to really do the research on it. But in terms of learning emotional intelligence, because that really comes down to emotional management, man, I got to think about it. I would just go look at Daniel Goleman for sure on the book EQ, and let me think about which one would be good. And then it says which book.
And Rene, you can answer it down below in
Okay.
comments. So, and I'll give you my book. It's not necessarily on emotional intelligence, but it was the book that had the most impact for me in last year, 2019. I read it multiple times. Well, I listened to the audiobook multiple times, and I still listen to the audiobook almost as therapy. And it's, it's the 4 agreements. It was just I feel like while it wasn't necessarily about emotional intelligence, the concepts of don't take it personally, and don't make assumptions helped make me more emotionally intelligent. And it also helped me, kind of like that. You can't tame it if you can't name it, or if you name it, if you can name it, you can tame it. It really helped me like name it. Like, so now I could like, oh, I'm making an assumption. Oh, that person's making an assumption. I could name it so I could tame it. And like, oh, I'm taking this personally. I'm being too personal. I'm using my words against me. So that's my favorite book that I think will help. If anybody else has an answer to that, I do think as we are getting into this world of digital disruption, we're all in this call, we're local professionals that live on referrals. Empathy is our superpower. Like empathy plus technology allows us to have a competitive advantage. So Rene, we got 2 minutes left. Any closing thoughts for today, brother?
Yeah, I think that you have helped me, because I read 4 Agreements when I was 18, and you easily go into, yeah, I read that book. Yeah, I read that book. Yeah, I get it. Don't take anything personally. But there were a couple times over the last month where you're like, dude, Agreement 3, and I'm just like, what do you mean? He's like, don't take it personal. I'm like, ah. And it's you got to look at the cliche stuff again. You got to look at the stuff that you just kind of let go in one ear and out the other. If you think you check the box on something, that's where you're in trouble. And you got to have good people around you to hold you to that. Thinking Fast and Slow is a book that somebody asked about human behavior. That is Daniel Kahneman, who is a Nobel Prize winning behavioral economist. And look at behavior economy or behavioral economics. And it is fascinating. It's a hard read, but it's worth it. It's really, really, really fun. In terms of closing comments, Dave, I want to honor you for always giving all of us this platform to talk, and your consistency in doing this is something that 10 years of doing this is it's just incredible, and it's unwavering. You're never sick. Even if you're sick, you're still going to do it. Somebody's going to step in and do it. So I just want to thank you and show my gratitude for that. And so thank you. And I hope people love the article. Please share the article, give feedback on the article, and we'll keep pushing.
Well, Mortgage Coach community, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the attention you give to our content, our YouTube channel, our Facebook group, the quality of the posts, the quality of the comments, the feedback I hear from the difference we're making. You know, it's why I do this. And you know, if you get any value, connect in the community. This is a wrap. If you got value from today's call, give us a like below. But really give Rene the gift of 3 words that when you think of Rene Rodriguez, what are those 3 words? That would be my, you know, one thing. I'd rather have that than a like, a love. I'd rather have that than feedback for me. What are 3 words that come to mind when you think of Rene Rodriguez? This call is a wrap. Y'all have a good day now. Take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
brother. Thank you, guys.
Take care, man.